May 28th, 2025 is not just a date on the calendar. It is not just another Wednesday. For the chosen, it is more than time. It is a divine appointment, a sacred moment etched into eternity before it ever reached our earthly clocks. It is a day ordained for something deeper than what the eye can see or the mind can fully comprehend. It is not about superstition or prediction. It is about purpose, and purpose always comes with preparation. For too long, many believers have walked through the valley of waiting, waiting for a promise to be fulfilled, waiting for a shift to happen, waiting for breakthrough, for clarity, for a sign. The days have blended together in silence, in struggle, and in perseverance. Some may have wondered if their faithfulness even mattered, if their obedience in the quiet corners of life had any real impact. But May 28, 2025 is the divine response to that wondering. It is heaven's way of saying, "Yes, I saw you. I saw you when you kept going while carrying weights no one else knew about. I saw you turn the other cheek, love through disappointment, and choose righteousness when compromise seemed easier. I saw your commitment not to quit when the reward was nowhere in sight. I saw you fast and pray when others feasted and faded. You didn't just believe in a miracle, you became the miracle in motion through your faith." This day marks a spiritual checkpoint, a divine pause where the chosen are acknowledged, not in fame or fortune, but in favor. On this day, something unseen will begin to stir in the lives of those who have endured. There may not be fireworks, and the skies may not part, but deep within, those who are sensitive will recognize the shift. They will feel the weight of old burdens lifting and the arrival of new assignments. They will sense the Spirit moving in fresh ways, reviving dead dreams, awakening sleeping callings, and unlocking doors long thought sealed shut. This isn't just about blessings, it's about positioning. Because the chosen are not elevated for their own comfort, they are elevated for greater purpose. And that elevation comes when the heart is humble and ready to carry the weight of the next mission. God doesn't just call the equipped, He equips the called. And on May 28th, the equipping intensifies. The chosen will not only feel refreshed, they will begin to understand why the delays, why the pressure, why the battles were necessary. What once felt like opposition will be seen as preparation. On that day, many will begin to notice divine alignment. Things that were once confusing will start to make sense. Connections will happen. Opportunities will arise. But more importantly, there will be clarity. Not the kind that comes from logic, but the kind that comes from divine confirmation. The kind that gives peace that passes all understanding. There will be an internal knowing, a quiet but undeniable sense that this is the time, that the shift has begun, that everything up to this point was not in vain. But let this be clear. May 28th is not magical. It is not the solution in itself. It is the beginning of a new wave, a signal from heaven to stay alert, stay ready, and stay faithful. The date alone holds no power. It is the God behind the moment who brings the meaning. He does not work on human calendars, but He honors seasons. And this is a season of revealing, of rewarding, of realigning. For the chosen, this day will mark a reminder. You were never forgotten. The prayers you whispered in secret were heard. The dreams you tucked away out of fear or fatigue are being revived. The oil you carried when others let theirs run out is now about to be used for something greater. You are not arriving at this moment by accident. You were prepared for it, even when you didn't know it. You were being refined for it in every trial, every detour, every moment you had to walk by faith and not by sight. May 28th, 2025 is a divine appointment, not because of what the world will see, but because of what heaven will release. It's not a day to fear, but a day to anticipate. It's not a deadline, it's a lifeline. A holy reminder that God is never late and that His promises still stand. It is the sound of chains breaking, blinders lifting, and destinies awakening. For those who have endured in silence, this is the beginning of being seen. For those who have trusted in stillness, this is the start of movement. And for those who have waited, this is the day that heaven whispers, now. So walk into May 28th, 2025 with open hands, open hearts, and unwavering faith. Not because of what might happen around you, but because of what is happening within you. You are not just passing through time, you are stepping into destiny. and destiny never misses its appointment. There's a misconception that being chosen means being flawless, that only the strongest, the most righteous, the most polished are selected for divine purpose. But the truth is far more beautiful and far more encouraging. The chosen are not perfect. They are positioned. God's call does not come to those who have never failed, never fallen, or never questioned. It comes to those who are willing, those who are surrendered, and those who have allowed their scars to become stories of grace. The chosen have walked through fire. They've wrestled with doubt. They've had moments of silence from heaven where they wondered if they had been forgotten. They've stumbled in private, cried in secret, and carried weights that few ever knew about. And yet, despite it all, they kept showing up. Not perfectly, but persistently. They kept praying when answers didn't come. They kept trusting when the path was unclear. They kept standing when everything around them told them to sit down. That's what it means to be positioned. It means being in place, not because you're flawless, but because you're faithful. It means God has seen your willingness to be used, even when you feel inadequate. It means He sees your heart, not just your history. When others look at the outside and judge your performance, God looks at the inside and sees your posture. He sees that your hands are open. He sees that your heart is tender. He sees that you're not relying on your strength, but on His. There's a pattern in Scripture that repeats over and over again. God never chose the obvious. He chose the overlooked. He didn't call the ones who had it all together. He called the ones who knew they needed Him to hold them together. David was a shepherd boy, not a soldier. Moses had a stutter, not a speech. Gideon was hiding, not fighting. Esther was an orphan, not a queen. And yet all of them were positioned. Positioned in the right place at the right time, with a heart ready to obey. Perfection is not the prerequisite for purpose. Obedience is. And obedience doesn't mean you never miss a step. It means you're willing to keep stepping even after a fall. It means that your dependence on God becomes your strength, that your humility becomes your power, and that your weakness becomes the very vessel through which His glory shines brightest. So many chosen ones disqualify themselves because of their past. They assume their mistakes make them unusable. But what if the very things you've been through are what qualify you to reach those you're called to? What if your pain is the bridge to someone else's healing? What if your failure is the soil where your future fruit will grow? You see, the enemy wants you to believe that your past is a prison, but God sees it as preparation. Being chosen doesn't mean you always get it right. It means God is willing to work through you while He's still working on you. It means grace doesn't just cover you, it flows through you. And as He positions you, you begin to see things differently. You begin to realize that the delay wasn't a denial, it was a development. That the closed door wasn't a punishment, it was protection. That the wilderness wasn't wasted, it was where you learned to hear His voice the clearest. Positioning is not always comfortable. Sometimes it feels like isolation. Sometimes it feels like stretching, but it is always purposeful. God positions His people strategically, not randomly. Every encounter, every detour, every seemingly insignificant step has meaning in the bigger picture of His plan. And when the time comes, what seemed ordinary will suddenly make sense. What seemed confusing will be seen as divine orchestration. You don't have to be perfect to walk in your calling. You don't have to have all the answers to be used. What you need is a willing heart and a surrendered spirit. That's what God honors. That's who He raises up. The ones who say, "Here I am, Lord. Send me, even if I don't feel ready." The ones who say, "Use my broken pieces. Use my imperfect story." Because it's in those hands that God does His most powerful work. You are not behind. You are not too damaged. You are not too late. If God has positioned you, then you are right where you need to be. Your imperfections do not disqualify you. They remind you that it's His power, not yours, that gets the glory. Your position is not about your performance, it's about your purpose. And when God has called you, no one can uncall you. When He opens a door, no one can shut it. When He places you in your assignment, no one else can take your seat. So don't wait until you feel perfect to walk boldly. Walk now. Speak now, serve now. You are not chosen because of how worthy you are. You are chosen because of how willing you are. And if you are positioned by God, then the world better take notice, because something powerful is about to move through your life. There are moments in life when it feels like everything you've done in faith goes unnoticed. The prayers whispered in the stillness, the tears cried in solitude, the kindness shown when no one was watching, all of it seems to vanish into silence. You wonder if your quiet obedience matters. You question whether your sacrifice has any weight in a world that rewards performance, applause, and visibility. But let this truth settle deep in your spirit. God sees the quiet sacrifices. He sees the mornings you get up early, not to impress anyone, but to seek Him in the secret place. He sees the times you chose to forgive, even when the pain begged you to hold on to the offense. He sees how you've given, not from your abundance, but from your lack, with a heart that trusts Him more than the numbers in your bank account. He sees you turn away from things that would have felt good in the moment, because your desire for holiness was greater than your hunger for comfort. You don't have to be on a stage to be seen by God. You don't have to have a title, a platform, or a public recognition to matter in His kingdom. In fact, some of the greatest movements of God are birthed in the most hidden places. He sees your faith when you worship with an empty heart. He sees your trust when you obey without understanding. And He treasures every quiet yes that no one else hears but Him. God sees the way you've carried your family through storms, all while your own heart was breaking. He sees the nights you stayed up, praying for someone else's healing, even when your own body was hurting. He sees the way you serve others, even when your own soul feels empty. None of it is wasted. Not a single moment has slipped past His attention. In a world obsessed with applause, God honors what is done in silence. Jesus Himself said, "When you give, do it in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly." That promise still stands. The quiet sacrifices are not invisible. They are eternal investments. Every time you loved instead of judged, every time you served instead of being served, every time you gave without expecting anything back, you were building something far greater than you could see. There is a depth of character being formed in you in those moments. The trials you faced in silence are shaping you into someone who can carry greater weight, greater wisdom, greater influence. Because before God elevates, He refines. Before He brings exposure, He builds endurance. And the ones who can be trusted with visibility are often those who have been faithful in obscurity. So when it feels like no one sees you, remember, you are seen, not by the crowd, but by the Creator. Not by those passing by, but by the one who walks with you in every season. He sees the journal entries stained with tears. He sees the strength it takes for you to keep showing up. He sees the love you pour out when your own heart is running dry. And He is not only watching, He is recording every act of obedience, every offering of trust, every moment of surrendered faith. You don't need to announce your faithfulness. You don't need to prove your loyalty. God knows. He remembers. He honors what man forgets. The quiet sacrifices may not come with a round of applause here, but in heaven, they echo with eternal significance. There is a crown being prepared for those who labored in secret, who loved deeply without recognition, who sowed seeds with no promise of immediate harvest, but who never stopped believing that God was working. Sometimes the reward doesn't come the way you expect. It may not show up in applause or admiration, but it will show up in peace that makes no sense, in strength you didn't know you had, in doors opening where none existed. God's rewards are not always loud, but they are lasting. They may not always be immediate, but they are always perfect in timing. Your sacrifice may be quiet, but it is mighty in heaven. Your faithfulness may be invisible to many, but it is unforgettable to God. Keep going, keep serving, keep loving, keep trusting. Your quiet obedience is setting things in motion that you cannot yet see. You are planting seeds that will grow into something far greater than you imagined. You are storing up treasure where rust and moth cannot destroy, treasure that will speak for you long after others have forgotten your name. There will come a day when everything you've done in secret will be rewarded in the open. Not to glorify you, but to glorify the God who empowered you to do it all. You may feel hidden, but you are held. You may feel overlooked, but you are marked. And your quiet sacrifices, though unseen by the world, are priceless in the eyes of the one who matters most. So walk boldly in your unseen obedience. Heaven is watching, and heaven never forgets. There comes a time in every believer's journey when things begin to shift, not externally first, but deep within. Something begins to stir, a divine unrest, a sacred anticipation. It's not fear and it's not pressure. It's the quiet yet powerful realization that God is calling you higher, that what once satisfied no longer does, that the old rhythms don't fit the new season. This is not confusion, it's awakening. You may not even be able to explain it, but you can feel it. The conversations that once entertained you now feel shallow. The habits you once justified now feel like chains. The people you once leaned on may feel distant. It's not because you're becoming proud or cold, it's because you're awakening to something deeper. Your spirit is waking up. You're not being torn down, you're being lifted. God is not only opening your eyes, He's strengthening your wings. The things that once weighed you down can no longer stay attached. You are entering a season of elevation, and elevation requires separation. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because your calling is demanding more of you. You can't fly while clinging to what you've outgrown. You can't reach new heights while holding on to old comfort. This awakening is divine. It's not coming from motivational words or external inspiration. It's coming from within. It's the Spirit whispering, "There's more." It's the gentle nudge reminding you of the dreams you buried, the calling you almost walked away from, the vision you once held with fire in your eyes. It's not just a season to survive, it's a season to rise. There will be moments in this season where it feels lonely. Elevation often comes with isolation. Not because you are abandoned, but because God wants to be your primary voice again. He wants to teach you how to soar without needing validation from the ground. He wants to remind you that your strength doesn't come from applause, it comes from alignment. And before He takes you to the next level, He brings you into a deeper stillness. But don't mistake stillness for stagnation. What feels like waiting is actually preparation. Just like an eagle doesn't flap wildly to ascend, but instead spreads its wings and catches the wind, you too are learning to rise by surrendering to the flow of God's presence. He's teaching you that striving will never take you where surrender can. He's showing you that the power to elevate is not in how hard you push, but in how fully you yield. In this season, doors will open that you didn't knock on. People will be drawn to you not because of your perfection, but because of the presence you carry. What you lost in the last season will be nothing compared to what you gain in this one. This is not about fame, it's about function. It's not about being seen, it's about being sent. God is raising you up not for your glory, but for His purposes. You are not just waking up to who you are waking up to why you are. The things that once confused you will start making sense. The places where you once felt stuck will begin to move. The battles you once thought would break you will be seen as the very training ground that built you. Your vision is clearing, your spirit is sharpening, and your steps are being ordered by a wisdom not your own. This is not the time to shrink back. This is not the moment to play small. You were not created to simply exist. You were made to advance, to influence, to transform the space around you. And that begins by allowing yourself to rise. You are not waiting for permission. Heaven has already approved. God has already anointed. The only thing left is for you to believe it. You'll notice your prayers shifting. You'll stop asking for survival and start praying for strategy. You'll begin to see opportunities where you once only saw obstacles. You'll look in the mirror and see more than just someone who's endured. You'll see someone who's equipped. Equipped to build, to lead, to speak, to serve, to love in deeper and more powerful ways. Do not be surprised if you begin to lose interest in things that once consumed you. That's not apathy, it's refinement. God is recalibrating your focus. You're not being emptied, you're being redirected. The passion that once scattered in many directions is now being focused like a beam. He's preparing you for impact. This awakening isn't just personal, it's purposeful. Others will be drawn to the light you carry, not because it's flashy, but because it's real, because it came from fire, because it was forged in quiet moments of surrender, repentance, and trust. The elevation is not just about going higher, it's about going deeper. You're being rooted in identity and raised in purpose all at once. So embrace the shift, embrace the stretching. Don't resist the growth that feels unfamiliar. You are being awakened not just to rise, but to rise ready. Ready to build what others thought impossible. Ready to walk in rooms you once felt unworthy to enter. Ready to love with a strength that doesn't come from this world. Ready to lead with humility, to speak with boldness, and to live with purpose. This is your season. You are awakening, and you are being elevated, not by force, but by faith. There's something powerful about looking back and realizing that what once felt like the end was actually the beginning. The nights that broke you, the losses that hollowed you, the disappointments that made you question everything, all of it was part of the training. It didn't come to destroy you, it came to develop you. The trials were not wasted. They were not meaningless. They were not random. They were training for this very moment. Every time you cried out to God, wondering why things were so heavy, He was building your endurance. Every time you felt alone and had to walk by faith and not by sight, He was sharpening your spiritual senses. Every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every delay you didn't understand, those were the workouts for your soul. They strengthen the muscles that praise when there's no music, that worship when there's no feeling, and that believe when there's no evidence. At the time, it didn't feel like training. It felt like chaos, confusion, pain. But God, in His infinite wisdom, knew exactly what He was doing. He was getting you ready, ready for responsibility, ready for influence, ready for impact. Because He doesn't just want to give you the blessing, He wants to make sure you're strong enough to carry it. And so He took you through seasons where you had to learn to trust Him in the dark. He let some things fall apart so that you would learn to rely on Him alone. He allowed certain people to walk away so you would stop putting your identity in human hands. He shut down paths that looked promising because He had something better in mind, something that required a version of you that had been refined by fire. You didn't just survive those trials, you were shaped by them. You learned resilience, you learned patience, you learned how to keep walking when the road was uncertain. You discovered a deeper relationship with God, not one based on convenience, but one rooted in covenant. A faith that is tested is a faith that is proven. And now when you speak, it carries weight, not because of charisma, but because of character. What others called setbacks, heaven called strategy. What the enemy meant for evil, God turned into preparation. The storms you went through weren't signs that God was absent. They were signs that He was active. He was pruning. He was aligning. He was teaching you how to handle pain without bitterness, success without pride, and waiting without quitting. This moment you're in now, the opportunity before you, the doors beginning to open, it's not a coincidence. It's the fulfillment of a process, the fruit of perseverance, the harvest of seeds you sowed in tears. And though the journey has been long, you are not behind. You are right on time. Everything that once confused you now begins to make sense. The broken road led you straight to purpose. Others might see the outward appearance, but only you and God know what it cost to stand where you're standing. The discipline it took, the battles you fought silently, the strength you had to find on days when you had nothing left. And because you've been through the fire, you won't crumble under pressure. Because you've walked through loss, you won't take this moment for granted. You are not entering this season as someone lucky. You are entering as someone ready. The beauty of God's training ground is that it's personal. He tailors it for each of us, molding us through moments we often try to escape. But on the other side, we realize we wouldn't be who we are today without what we went through. It taught us to hear His voice above the noise. It taught us to stand when we wanted to run. It taught us that even when nothing changes around us, something powerful can change within us. Now, with stronger shoulders and a refined heart, you are walking into a season that your trials prepared you for. The lessons you learned in private will lead in public. The integrity you built when no one was watching will carry you in places where many lose themselves. The tears you cried alone have watered a future you're about to walk into. You are not empty, you're equipped. This is your moment, and you're not stepping into it unprepared. You're stepping in with history, with evidence of God's faithfulness written in every scar. You're stepping in with power, not loud, boastful power, but quiet, anchored strength. You're stepping in not wondering if you're ready, but knowing that every hard season was a classroom for this calling. So walk boldly, speak with confidence, love without fear. You've been trained for this. You've been built for this. The trials didn't break you, they revealed you. And now the world is about to see what God saw all along. It's easy to think that where you are now is the end of the story. Maybe you've come through a season of struggle, loss, or transition. Maybe things didn't go the way you planned. You prayed, believed, hoped, and then watched things fall apart. It might feel like you're standing in the ruins of what was, wondering what could possibly come next. But let this truth take root in your soul. This is not the end. This is the beginning. What looks like an ending in your eyes is often the very place where God begins His greatest work. When it seems like everything is closing in, He is carving out space for something new. When the familiar is stripped away, it's because He's making room for the divine. You might feel like you've lost everything, but in God's economy, loss is often the first ingredient in transformation. What you thought was over is just the prologue to a greater chapter. You didn't survive what you went through just to stop here. You weren't preserved, protected, and carried through fire just to settle in ashes. There is still breath in your lungs, and as long as you are breathing, purpose is still moving. God is not done with you. In fact, He's just getting started. What may have looked like a setback was actually a setup. What felt like a delay was divine alignment. You've been positioned for something more, and this, right now, is your beginning. Beginnings don't always announce themselves with fanfare. Sometimes they arrive quietly, wrapped in ordinary moments. They're often disguised as small steps, difficult decisions, or uncertain paths. But don't despise humble beginnings. Don't overlook the slow starts or the hidden seasons. That's where God does His deepest work. That's where roots grow strong. You're not behind, you're not forgotten. You're in the birthing room of something sacred. Even if you feel weak, even if you're starting again with trembling hands and a bruised heart, God delights in rebuilding. He is the God of restarts, resets, and renewals. He doesn't just restore what was lost, He multiplies what remains. He takes your broken pieces and forms a vessel that can carry more than you imagined. He takes your mourning and gives you joy. He takes your wilderness and turns it into a garden. The end of what you thought you needed is the beginning of what you were truly made for. Look at how far you've come. Even when you were unsure, you moved forward. Even when you were afraid, you kept praying. Even when nothing made sense, you didn't let go of your faith. That kind of perseverance doesn't go unnoticed in heaven. God honors the ones who keep walking, keep believing, keep hoping. You are not standing at a tomb. You are standing at a threshold. Yes, there may still be wounds. Yes, some questions remain unanswered. But none of that disqualifies you. In fact, it prepares you. Your scars are not signs of failure. They are proof that you've been through battles and survived. And now those very scars will become your testimony. What once hurt you will now help someone else heal. What once confused you will become wisdom for others. You are being raised up not just for yourself, but for others who are waiting for the sound of hope. There's more inside you than you realize. You've been stretched, refined, and strengthened through the fire. Your capacity has expanded. Your discernment has grown. Your compassion has deepened. God has been shaping you, not for comfort, but for calling. And now it's time to rise. It's time to build again, dream again, believe again. Not because everything is perfect, but because God is faithful. This new beginning isn't about returning to what was. It's about stepping into what's next. It's not about recreating an old version of your life. It's about embracing the new thing God is doing. He promised in His word, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" The question isn't whether it's coming. The question is, are you ready to see it? Don't let fear speak louder than your faith. Don't let the past dictate your future. What happened before may have left you weary, but it did not leave you empty. You are still full of promise. still full of potential. The very fact that you are here is evidence that God is not done. There's a reason He preserved you. There's a reason He's kept you. Your story has chapters yet to be written, and the pen is still in His hand. So lift your head, straighten your shoulders, breathe deep. This is not your finale. This is your beginning. The ground beneath you is holy, and the days ahead are filled with divine purpose. You are not starting over, you are starting forward, with more wisdom, more clarity, and more strength than ever before. This is not the end, this is the beginning, and it's going to be beautiful.